Hello, and welcome to the Voices of the Industry, a podcast by the AI Localization Think Tank, which aims to bring diverse voices from our industry in the conversation about AI and how it is impacting what we do. Today, we're lucky to have Justin Beaudin, the founder of a media localization company called Adapt. Hello, Justin. Thank you for joining us.
Hey, Sabola, so glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
Before you tell us who you are and what you do, I was thinking we could open with a fun fact or a hobby, something about Justin.
Sure. Yeah, no, of course. I think probably one thing that, our families are near and dear to all of us. One interesting thing about me is that I actually have triplets. So I don't think a lot of people know that. We were trying for a year and tried a fertility drug, and then literally the next month had triplets.
Oh my God.
They are 10
How
years
old
old.
are they?
They are 10 years old. They are two girls and a boy, and it's just a really fun age, and doing an entrepreneurial journey like this and being able to share it with your kids is really really special. So they know all about Adapt, and they know all about localization now. They watch all my videos, and they are ready to help me with social media marketing when they're 18. So
Okay.
yeah.
So, how do you explain to them what you do and who you are?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you listen, Disney in the recent years, Disney Plus and Netflix and these companies have done such a good job adding localization to their platforms. And so I think, when we watch one of those Disney shorts and then you see 8 dub cards roll by with all these different names in these different languages, somebody did that. And I think, what I tell them, dad does that. We're using the latest tools to do it, but we're still trying to preserve um localization as an art form, and use these new tools, put them in the toolkit of artists, and let them do what they do best, just with new cool technology. And yeah, I think for the most part that gets it. People get translation, which is it's wonderful to be in an industry that people understand. They understand that stories need to be shared. They may not understand what goes into it, but they get the premise. And so I think it's nice to work into an industry that resonates.
So, when you say it like that, do they understand it?
Oh yeah, no, for 100%, 100%. And then you can play them. You're like, hey, like let's check out these different languages. Let's check out these different dubs and subtitles. And
Okay.
you can consume it. It's funny. We were at DEG Tech Fest in LA yesterday, and there was we had a video playing of me, and we were demoing the fact that now we're doing lip manipulation. We're actually moving the lips. I would put this on the web too, so you can find it out there. But people are walking by it, it resonates, right? People were like, wow, I get it. I understand what's happening here and I see what's going on. This person who clearly is not smart enough to speak 7 different languages is speaking 7 different languages, and their lips are moving. That had to be done by something else. And so I think that really resonates. And you can't fake it. You can't like, demo a good dub without being able to do a good dub. So I think it's pretty easy to understand what we do and grasp it if you put it out in front of someone.
So you really believe in the technology. If you do it live, if you do live demos, then you can't mess it up.
That's
Um,
that's true. I mean, the beauty of doing a dub is you can do it ahead of time and then show them. So yes, we're ready to show anything, but we are not doing any live dubbing.
okay. Because there are some humans involved, right?
Yeah, yeah, great point, great point. So yeah, so Adapt's approach to AI dubbing is to say, hey, there is a lot going on with the localization process. And now there are a lot of new tools. And there's going to be a lot of companies out there that are going to say, I can do voice generation very, very well, or I can do translation very, very well. Those companies are like DeepL, who are on the NASDAQ. You are massive companies. They're like ElevenLabs, who has raised $400 million. These companies are going to build this tech really, really well, and they're going to be rewarded for it, and they should. There's really cool technology and investments in time and energy being made there. But there's still a localization process that's really complex unto itself. You got to receive a file, you've got to receive a script, you've got to create a creative letter. You got to say, hey, what am I going to do with this content? You got to create a KMP. You're then going to transcribe it or create a dialogue list in the original language. You've got to translate it and adapt it and pick the right words for lip sync. Um, and then no matter how good the tools are, someone has to say, here's what I want the tools to do. One day that may be as easy as a prompt, but it is nowhere near today. You have to
But you've
drive
tried
the
it. You've tried it.
I've tried it. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I play with these tools. I'm not as good as Svetlana, who is our vice president of localization, who runs our regional leads to use the tools, but I use them. But you have to drive them. You have to really use these tools. And so if on the left we have all these really cool technology companies that are building individual components, on the right, I think we need to have AI really next generation LSPs focused on how do you bring them together. And that is what Adapt is doing. And when we say how do we bring them together, it is how do you bring all that technology together through the process, transcription, translation, voice generation, lip manipulation, but also how do you bring the people, these experts all around the world who are dubbing directors or script adapters or linguists or subtitlers, how do you bring them into this new world and give them these new tools in a way that produces a good product? And I think that's where we have to be focused on creating a really good output. If you drive from the art form backwards, I think you'll come up with the right process.
So that's how you started. That's how you started. You started from the art form, from what you wanted as an output.
Everything. Yeah, I mean, like, several, you love localization. I love localization. We love content, right? I think a lot of people share in this industry. We love content. We love watching movies. And as a consumer on on the couch, if you will, um, you want it to look good. You want it to sound good. You want it to be accessible. Pun intended, right? And I think when we, watch a Spanish dub and then turn on the Spanish subtitle, we want it to match because we're like, oh, what did they just say? And if they don't match, that's frustrating to us. And so we like really need to understand what the consumer is doing, what they want, and then drive backwards. Are we laughing as much in Germany as we're laughing in the United States when a joke is made, right? And driving backwards from that, and then you put so that has always been my concept as far as to how Adapt started. I think 4 or 5 years ago, if you were going to be in the AI game, I really felt you had to be a data scientist, and I am not. I am a mechanical engineer way once upon a time, so I am an engineer, but I cannot compete with data science. That is not my specialty. But a few years ago, we were testing at another company. We were testing Whisper versus AppTech versus XLA and a few others for a transcription, and Whisper performed quite well. And Whisper, is a really kind of a freeware from OpenAI, and that really struck me that this freeware from OpenAI could do a very good job. You didn't have to pay for it, and yet it could do a very good job. And I think that was the moment that said, hey, these massive tech companies are going to build, again, these pieces. But maybe now there's an opening for someone who understands localization, cares a lot about the people in the localization process, cares about content a whole bunch, to say, hey, there's another layer that has to be added here to pull this all together and do it well. And that was really the precipice for Adapt. And I guess maybe there's a little bit of a chip on my shoulder because all the AI, it felt at least that all the AI dubbing companies were coming from outside the industry in and saying,
Yes.
"Hey, look at everybody! I have this great tech," and I think I don't know. There's a piece of me that someone like, "Yeah, no, we get it. We understand there's really good tech here. We know localization. We're going to show you how to use that tech best." The reality is there are a lot of good companies. We are not alone. It's wonderful to have a lot of innovation in the industry. And look forward to seeing what happens next.
Like 100 companies doing
Oh man,
AI
yeah,
dubbing.
we have so because we are using all the technology. If there is a SaaS platform out there, our director of product, Russell Waite, is trying it out, and I think we have 36 of them on the list that we have tried or looked at. I mean, there are so many. I do think you kind of have to do the LinkedIn test and say, oh, there's a company, out there, but if I look them up, there's a CEO, a CFO, their dog is on the LinkedIn page, and they're calling the company. Because I do think you have to be careful. A lot of people are just sort of saying, oh, I took ElevenLabs, I put a thing in front of it, or
Exactly.
yeah, or Orpheus is these are some of these models are open source, and right. So if you have a decent sense of how to put a skin on top, you could grab Orpheus and just go, right? And so yes, I think yeah, but
That,
there,
that
yeah,
that's the
maybe
that's the
there's something.
feeling. That's the feeling
Yeah,
I have too. It's like the skin on top you were
yeah,
talking about.
yes.
So the real ones are how many would you say?
Yeah, ElevenLabs, I think, has kind of won the race as far as voice
Yeah.
generation. Maybe they won't stay there forever, but they certainly have done a good job. And we talk with them quite a bit because they are, we are an enterprise customer of theirs, and I think they're doing the job staying on top of it and figuring out where to go. There are a number of other, I think, sort of more comprehensive tool sets that give you more control and accent and speech to speech and giving those options to the people that use it, which I really commend them. I think Deep Dub is one of those, Dub Former is one of those. And then there are, I don't know, I think there probably are about 15 ones that have some, at least to us, some value. There are models like Cartesia out there that do certain like, one-shot TTS really well. And that's interesting. Can I use that for certain things? But then if you get into singing, you've got to pull all other kinds of tools in, right? You have to build tools in the decompose melody, right? And then there are tools that help you break out M&E stems so that you can pull them into your Pro Tools mix. So, there's this sort of core set of maybe 15, but there's probably another, I don't know, a couple dozen tools that are doing one little thing really well. And I love that. I think that's neat. I think that's where,
Yeah.
and again, there's value to the artist. There's value to the localization company that says, ooh, I found this one Pro Tools plugin that works really, really well when I'm doing lip sync, and adjusting a voice generation. And that's cool. I mean, that I think that is where we all have space to play and be creative and add value.
Yeah, and it will be interesting to see in a year, how many of those will be around or not. But
Oh,
that's
so true.
so going back to what you have seen, was there anything you tried and it didn't work?
All the time. I mean, I think.
Something that really, struck most or you remember mostly?
I think so. We have this position called the cultural ambassador, and the idea was if AI solves everything, what's left? And I would say you still need someone who's going to say, hey, this represents the narrative in this culture. Never mind the language, right? Maybe someday language will be completely solved via AI, but there'll still be like, hey, southern France maybe has a slightly different culture, or southern Spain versus northern Spain, right? Or certainly different cultures in the US. And so perhaps, maybe one day we're doing localization across cultures. So we say, like, let's extract that way out and say these are ambassadors of culture. They're taking the narrative to the culture and making sure it resonates. Um, so our cultural ambassadors today do much more than that, though. The reality is you have to do a lot to make these tools come together and create an AI-enabled dub. In that journey, I think we thought that we could be very prescriptive in it and say, hey, this is a tool. This is exactly how you're going to do it. And I think in a positive way, we wanted to train them. This is how you're going to do it. And I
Like
think
with guidelines, like strict guidelines and
exactly, strict guidelines. Hey, like this, you're going to use this tool in this way. TTS, text to speech only, and here are the ways to make text to speech really good.
these
Uh,
guidelines were made to help them be more productive or just to
yeah,
get it right.
be more productive. Stay within our workflow. You may make things kind of consistent so we're not, drifting away. And there are places where we have to be restrictive, right? Like you can't clone a voice without permission, right? Like that is one where it's like that is a big, big thing we talk about at the top of every production meeting. Um, so like in there, we start to put things in the system to restrict that. But yeah, I would say a combination of just being able to predict a workflow and then helping them be efficient and create a quality product. I think what we learned on that journey, what we got wrong, is that if you give them some freedom, they'll do really cool things. And I think today, if you look at, we're probably doing 100 hours a month of AI dubbing. So, it's not an enormous amount, but it's a decent amount. And in that, we are probably doing a whole bunch of different, in that moment where the cultural ambassador grabs the voice generation tool and they're really designing the dub, some of them will grab the microphone 5% of the time. Some of them will grab the microphone 50% of the time. Some of them will say, hey, I know that need another person to join me. Can we set that up? Some of them will say, hey, I think I need a different tool. Can I get a different tool? And I think we've started to really embrace that. to say one of our principles way back when was like the good AI tools should allow for creativity. And I think that reminded us that, oh, this is the moment. This is the moment where like these creative people get to be creative. Um, and I have to commend, Matteo and Svetlana and the regional heads and Russell Wade, our head of product, who are like really like they want to do that. They want to give these people different tools. And I think that we got wrong at first. I think we thought, hey, this is the right tool. We know we know which is the right tool because we have all this central data. And I think the problem with that thesis is we don't know them. That we're going to figure out who they are, but like let them be them and let them use these tools that fit good. And I think that's great. I think that was a rewarding place to find that we were very wrong.
So tell me more about this grabbing the microphone thing. What do the cultural ambassadors do?
Yeah, and that's a great question. So, in AI voice generation, right? Because again, in a localization process, it's more than voice gen, transcribing, translating, adapting. Then you're going to do that voice gen. Then you're going to do a mix. Then you're going to do back. So I just want to remind everybody that it is not one function that makes a good dub, right? It is an entire process, and a lot of creative input. But in that voice generation step that the cultural ambassador is doing, I would say there's probably two main ways to do it. TTS, text to speech, or STS, speech to speech. And in a lot of these tools, you end up combining the two together. You're going to run through that first pass adaptation and say, give me what you got. Okay, AI, do your thing. Give me your best shot. And it'll give it its best shot. And certain tools will do better at the first pass than others. And then you're going to start going through there and cleaning that up. This is too fast. This is too slow. Let me expand this audio. Let me compress this audio. Let me change this word. Now that I hear it, it's like a dubbing director. Now that I hear the script the adapter wrote, let me change a few words. You're gonna do that, but then you're like, man, that just doesn't sound good. I don't like that. Let me switch from TTS, where I'm generating the voice, to STS, where it's taking my voice and it's taking my pronunciation, my inflection, and it's adding back on the synthesized voice that I'm using from the platform or the actor's voice that has given their voice to the platform, right? So at ElevenLabs, there's 5,000 voices that you can use, and I think they paid out $5 million. So like kudos that there is at least some kind of payments being going out here and being made in these platforms. But in the STS, then they're saying, hey, I'm going to be the actor. I'm going to play all these different parts in these moments where TTS was not good enough. And so, yeah, that is that microphone moment is speech to speech AI enabled dubbing, where you are still speaking into it. And I think the reality is, if we're going to be fast and we're going to do cool new things, if you're doing speech to speech all the time, you're almost kind of back to traditional dubbing, right? But if you can mix it in and do, hey, like AI, give me your best shot, but no, this scene is too important and you're getting it all wrong. You grab that microphone and you do it yourself. You drive it.
So you do speech to speech, which means that you talk and the AI uses the synthetic voice from the
Exactly.
library that you have chosen already for the specific
Character. For that
character.
character, yeah. Yeah, yeah. And the work, I think most people, and again, we don't prescribe this, but I think most people go character by character. I'm gonna do Justin through this whole thing. Then I'm gonna go back, then I'm gonna do Stavrola because I really like then I get like, hey, this is how I want Stavrola to sound in German or French or whatever. And so they do kind of tend to go character by character, through the dub, which again, you would do that in a traditional dub too. So this is where I think traditional expertise in dubbing and I am not the expert. I just have a team. I hired people from Netflix and and Deluxe and lots and lots of people, VSI, who have paved the way, pioneered the way of good dubbing. Um, and I, those people bring these workflows from traditional dubbing into AI dubbing.
And how were they adapting to this new kind of working?
Unfortunately, I think there's an impression in the industry that um, AI is impacting jobs. And the reality is, I think if you added up all the AI dubbing vendors for like true broadcast or OTT work, we're probably doing less than 1% of what's in the market today. But I certainly understand the fear. But then what's combining that fear right now is that while the AI dubbing is kind of coming down the pipe, industry volumes have gone down dramatically. I mean, like we are in one of the most depressed periods that I've seen in my 20-year career in the industry. And that I wish people would talk more about that because I think there's a misconception out there that AI is stealing the jobs, and they just don't work right now. And so like I think part of what like we need a spark. We need to say, hey, do more, do this. You ever thought about that? Like we need to spark this industry back up. I'm very passionate about this industry. That being said, because there's not a lot of work out there, it is a nice time to build a new company. And we're losing money right now, right? We are a net add to the industry. We are not at the point where we're like making big profits and figuring out how much of those profits to go down. I haven't taken a salary for 2 years. We are like everything that we get goes right back into the platform and the people. And so I think we're creating jobs at the moment. And our cultural ambassadors or our hierarchically goes Svetlana, 5 regional heads, and then language leads. I think we have about 16 language leads that are full time in different languages. And then we have 300 freelancers. All of those people have been like, hey, this is neat. This is cool. You care about localization. And let me get my hands on it and try. And certainly, admittedly, those are the people who said, okay, yeah, I'm interested. Let me join. But that's 350 people total who have expressed interest and really leaned into it. And that's really fun to see, to be honest. It's
And
really
yeah,
wonderful.
I was thinking more of the people, the cultural ambassadors or the
Yep.
dubbing directors
Yep. Yep.
that used to work in a different environment and now
Yep.
they work in a completely, I mean, the workflow is very similar, but
Hmm.
the tools and the processes are different. And how has it been, what are they reporting in terms of their adapting to these
I think
things?
the most interesting thing that happens is the learning curve. Because I think they come in and they're like, it's just this tool just can't do this. And we say, hey, well, why don't you talk to Andre? Yeah, he figured that out last week, and I don't know how he did it, but go talk to this other localization expert in this other language who figured this out and see what they did. And then they come back from that conversation. They say, "Oh yeah, Andre did kind of. Let me try that." And again, this is that why freedom so important. Yeah, that thing that we told you to do didn't work. Do another one. And I think you see this really kind of like maybe we have this work time runtime ratio. How many hours are we spending creating a dub for 1 hour of a good dub? And when we started this journey, it was about 250, believe it or not, which is probably worse than traditional dubbing. So 250 hours of
For
AI
one
and
hour.
1 hour, right?
And
And
how much is it in traditional dubbing?
I actually don't know. I should do that metric. I don't know. I probably get nervous. I am also the CFO, if you will, of the company. So I'm like, oh, we got to figure out how to make money here eventually. But we are now down to like 30. And no one. And the interesting thing is like we're growing. We're just grabbing jobs, doing what we can. But we track the metric in our platform nuance. And I'm just watching this metric go down without us even driving it. And it's because the cultural ambassador goes and I said, "This is how much time I spent." And that is kind of magical, right? The fact that like we're going from 250 hours to 30 hours, and it's just happening. And I think that is representative of this journey that like at first, like, this is kind of painful. This is kind of hard to 6 to 8 weeks later being like, I got it, send it over. Oh, that's neat. You want to do like, should we have that that Spanish person have a Spanish accent in English, or should we do a UK accent? And like they start moving away from the tool didn't work right to what can I creatively do now with this tool? And that again, like it's 7 a.m. here in LA in an Airbnb, and I am like feeling the excitement because like that is what it's like. Whoa, cool! We can do new things, and let's talk about those new things. And so yeah. So to answer your question, though, apologies for always getting off track. Answer your question, I think that it's that frustration at first, or maybe not frustration because they're excited to have the job, they're excited to be a part of it, but that kind of like, am I? This is going to work? To boom, and it's working. Here's what I can do. Here's what I can do different, and that's really fun to watch.
And it's one person from end to finish of the workflow or
No,
the.
it really isn't. I mean, there's a client service team. You still have to place these orders, and then there is a creative standards team, which is pretty small. Svetlana and the regional leads kind of fill that role today, but they're the ones who are creating the KNP and the creative letter and saying, "Hey, let's do this is a historical Spanish film, so let's do Spanish accents into all these other languages," which again is something you could do in traditional localization, but would be much harder. So they're creating that, hey, this is a creative guidance for all the languages, right? So that's a separate little team. Then we're going to create the OV dialogue list, and that is our scripting team. They came from traditional scripting environments. They are taking an AI transcription, but they're perfecting it. And then it's going to the cultural ambassador. So I guess that's like our fourth person in the workflow. And then it's going to our tech producer who is working in our cloud-based Pro Tools environment to do a professional mix. And then it's going to go back to the cultural ambassador, take another look at it, and then it's going to have a check by the regional heads. They're going to audit for quality, make sure this all makes sense and looks good, and then it's going to go to the packaging team for delivery. So I don't even know what that is. Is that like eight? I mean, there are two key roles. The cultural ambassador is the biggest one, and then the tech producer. But there's all these other roles around that play a really important part in the process.
And from the 100 hours you do a month, how many languages are I know you do something like 20 languages you cover.
Yeah, 25. We covered 25 today. We're constantly more. We're only kind of limited by can we find great people and is the tech available by somebody? Maybe ElevenLabs doesn't do Telugu, but we'll find an AI engine that does.
Mm-hmm. So
And
how
so
many out of these 100 hours, how many are in how many languages are most of
are
them?
active. Yeah, Spanish is I don't know, probably 8 to 10 are active. We're doing like 5 hours a month or 10 hours a month. But we have always kind of taken the position that you got to get reps in this game. And so, like, we did a Stephen King short film called Willa that is on IMDb, but it was like done by a individual independent filmmaker. So he was like very like interested in this, and he got cloning agreements from everybody in the movie. I think we did Willa in all 25 languages just
Okay.
for the heck of it, right? And so, like, every month we always have like our own little project to say, can we pull this off? Can we do it in 25 languages? And so all those languages are active, right? We don't say that we can do a language unless we can do it and do it all the way to the point where it's like, it's going on a demo reel, and we're gonna put Willa out on YouTube and probably all those languages. So that'll be one hell of a demo reel. So yes, I would say from customers, maybe 10, maybe 12. I'd have to check. But we are pushing ourselves in all these languages. If we have the resources. So we want to keep our language leads in Tamil, rolling. We don't want them to get stale. So we're always pushing stuff through the pipeline for ourselves if we don't have something for a customer.
And so what's one piece of advice you'd give someone who is navigating AI in their own industry, in their own little corner?
Hmm. Whew, man, AI is a big, big, big topic, and there's a lot to cover, and there's a lot to be afraid of, but I would say if you're in your little industry, I think probably you have to take the lessons from history and embrace change for passion for your craft. Like it kind of goes back to like if you have passion for your craft, then I think you're protected from the disruption of technology. It is maybe a it might be a frustrating disruption and jobs will be lost, and that sucks. I mean, I think that's a role for government. I could talk a long time about the role of important government structures to protect society in these transitions because they're painful and they're tough. But the transitions will happen, and it's very hard to stop them. Historically, they have happened, right? Horses to cars, right? Like you could not stop it. Eventually, it was going to happen. Um, so, what's your craft? And maybe you have to think a little bit broader about your craft. Is your craft horses, or is your craft transportation? Is your craft? Are you a dubbing director, or are you in charge of bringing a narrative to another country? So you might need to broaden your look of what you're really doing and then get passionate about the end product that you are creating, and then say, cool, clean slate. What are the tools out there? don't go straight to AI. So what are the tools out there? How can we do this differently? And I think if you take that approach to say, I'm passionate about the product, I get we're not all passionate about our job, but like I care. I am a professional and I care about the end product that I am a part of. And then you say, how can I do that better today? I think that will help you on this journey, which can be painful and can be tough and can be disruptive to people's lives. And I don't want to roll past that. I think that like it is not o okay to not be empathetic for someone who loses their job because AI changed it. Like that, I think as a society, empathy is very important. But at the same time, we got to give these people those tools. And I think the first thing I'd say is, hey, you're badass at your job because you care about the end product. And now someone just rolled over with a bunch of new tools and they're available to everybody. So you got to start learn them, figure out how they can make your end product better and get to it and try to have some fun on that journey, as painful as it might be.
I love the way that you started and you ended with the viewer on the couch. In entertainment, this is what we care about, right? We also care
Yeah.
about the client, of course. We also care highly about the creator. We want to transport their voice and do it great. But ultimately, is it's the viewer on the couch, right? So where do you think this is all heading? What's your take on the future of voice work and
Yeah.
translation with AI in the mix?
I think Three Play Media put out a really good article. Three Play is mostly focused on time text captioning accessibility, and they put out a really cool article. And I had a time to breeze through it a little bit. The general thesis of the article and the research was technology is plateauing. It was like, wow, this is so cool. This is amazing. And transcription was the first one to really get rolling, but it's plateauing. It can only like when you get, yeah, wow, 0 to 50% boom is 50% to 80% boom, 80% 95% boom. Like, oh my God, it's gonna be solved tomorrow. And then that long curve kind of starts coming out and it doesn't quite reach that infinity line. And it's kind of plateauing around 96, 97%. And I've always said in my career the last 5% is the hardest. I think we're going to see that across the board. I mean, I could be outdone. I mean, things are moving. VO from Google was like, whoa, like this is getting real crazy real fast. But generally speaking, I think technology does plateau when you get really close to the finish line. And I think we're going to see that plateau start to happen. I think we have seen it happen some of these tools. And I think we'll start to figure out as an industry, a localization industry, what are we going to do in that 3 to 5%? And maybe what can we do
How
to go?
important this 3% is because
It's
it can
everything.
make
It's
all the
everything.
different thing. It can make all
It's
the
everything.
difference. Yeah.
It's what keeps you engaged. I mean, like there's always been storytellers. A good storyteller is the one that does those little things better, and so like that last 3% is everything. And then maybe you're going to learn, ways to make it, 105%. You can't do it, but like you're gonna do lip manipulation. You're gonna spend some time on that. You're gonna talk more about the creative story, but we're gonna figure out how to get that last 3% really good. And I think that will kind of calm everybody's nerves down and say, hey, this is the place we're going to play as an industry, and things will settle down, and we'll go back to not talking about is the AI transcription good or not? Did I have to? Right, we're going to start talking about, ooh, man, what accent should we use? Or should Squid Games be available both in a Korean American accent and an American accent and a UK? Like, can I make these choices in the platform? And I think that's a cool conversation, and I think we're going to settle into that. And I look forward to. I mean, I think we're going to get to a plateau here, and I think it'll be a really fun plateau, and probably good for people's lives too who are struggling with this transition. So that's my prediction. We'll see if it happens. Maybe you will point out to me while I'm wrong in a podcast a year from now, but we'll see.
We'll be around. We'll be around.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, well, we will be here one way or another.
Thank you so much, Justin. It has been so much fun. I could be here, listen to you, talk to you for another 2, 3 hours. Maybe we can do another episode soon. So until then, thank you very much again
Uh,
and speak soon.
Sounds good. Several, I'm honored. Thank you so much.
Bye bye.
Bye.